Everybody, welcome to the last Chronicles of Planet Earth. When you go to my website, you'll see a cover of my book behind me, and right below it there's a link. And that link will take you directly to my book. You can download it for free just by going to my website, which is www.dimoraministry.com. I'm going to be covering a couple of different prophecies today. One of them is the signs of the Psalm 83 war, and the other one is the Ezekiel chapter 38 war. Both of these wars haven't been fulfilled yet, but they are in the process of being fulfilled, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the signs that we're seeing that these wars are going to be happening soon. Now, when you look in the news today, you're going to see some information about the tensions mounting between the Lebanese and the Israelis. And you're also going to see how Russia has stepped in and is trying to use their influence to quiet down the tensions that are mounting between Israel and the Lebanese. So first of all, let me tell you that the first battle that's going to take place will be the Psalm 83 war. Those are the nations that will surround or bordering the nation of Israel. And the second war will be taking place after the Psalm war. That war will be led by the Russians, keep that in mind, and you will find that the other Islamic nations that hook up with Iran, that are also mentioned specifically in Ezekiel chapter 38, including Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, Turkey, and some of the other nations that are mentioned there. But that war, the Ezekiel war, will happen afterwards. But Russia will be involved in leading that attack. So let me concentrate first on the news that pertains to Russia and what's happening with the border nations around Israel, specifically today, the Lebanese and Syria, because that's what we're going to concentrate on today. So let me, first of all, before I get into the news, I want to tell you that when you go to my website and you scroll down, you'll see a box, and it has the list of the Old Testament names of the modern day countries. And the articles that we're talking about today that appear in the news, we see that, for example, Edom is the modern day, the Palestinians and Jordanians. We'll see that Gilbal, which is spelled Gbal, is Hezbollah and the Lebanese. And then you have Philistina, which is actually the Philistines of modern day, Hamas, that live in the Gaza Strip with the Palestinians. So now that you know who's involved, and there's some other nations that are involved in the Psalm 83 war, but we're going to center on those right for now. Let me show you that what's happening. It says, and I quote, "Russia is highly concerned over the bloodshed on the Israeli-Lebanese border," a spokesman for the Russian foreign minister said on Wednesday. On Tuesday, a bloody skirmish, which saw Israeli and Lebanese soldiers exchanging fire along the northernmost section of the border, killed a senior Israeli officer and 4 Lebanese, including 3 servicemen and a journalist. The Russians called for all sides to adhere strictly to the armistice proclaimed by the UN Security Council Resolution of 1701. 2 things, actually 3. Number 1, there's Russia involved. Number 2, they're talking about the northernmost section of Lebanon. And keep in mind that the scriptures tell us that Lebanese are going to be involved in this war. And then also in Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 6, 38 verse 15, and also in Ezekiel 39:2, it talks about this attack coming from the northern quarter. So that's north of Israel. And so we see Russia, we see the northern problems, we see Lebanon from the north, and this Resolution 1701. Now the Resolution 1701 states that you can't have or bring arms or store arms on the border, which obviously that's happening because just a few days ago we've been getting news that more rockets were being tossed into Israel, and now the Lebanese border problems. So what I'm trying to show you here is that you have the very same nations that are listed in the Ezekiel or the Psalms prophecy showing up in the news today. And it goes on to say that prohibits, among other things, the storing weapons in the Lebanese and Israeli border. The ministry said in a statement, in the 4 years since the Israeli-Hezbollah war in 2006, northern Israel has seen several rocket attacks by Lebanese-based terrorist organizations, but there have been no cases of confrontations between the regular armed forces of both countries since that 2006 war, but tensions are mounting up, and we know that this is going to lead eventually. One of these skirmishes, these conflicts, is going to go into a full-blown war. Now, another article, it says the Russia carriers seen docking in Syria by 2013. Now, read this article, because what's happening, Russia has moved their navy, part of their navy, and now they're looking for the warships, these carriers, to come into the Tarshish, the port in Syria. Keep in mind, this is north of Israel, directly north of Israel. So you have the nation Syria mentioned in Psalms, and now you have Russia, who are now moving their fleet into that area of Syria. So if there's a skirmish between, or a war that breaks out between Israel and the bordering nations, like it says in Psalm 83, and Israel hits those ships that Russia owns, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to cause massive, massive problems. The Russians aren't going to sit by. And what we believe that will happen is that war, the Psalm war, will be finished. Israel will win that war, and Russia at that time won't respond. But they will respond shortly after that in the Ezekiel 38 war, where Ezekiel specifically tells us Russia will lead the attack from the north. And so these things are all coming into play. So they're going to have these warships. They already have ships docked there now, but they're looking for these massive carriers by 2013. Then there's another article that says Hezbollah threatens to join violence on the Lebanese border with Israel. Again, these are the same nations that we see in Psalm 83. Hezbollah has threatened to get involved in violent battle on the Lebanese border with Israel, sparking fears that tensions in the region could spiral out of control. 5 people were killed in a clash along the Blue Line, the historically volatile frontier between the two states. The unrest was the most serious since the Israel invaded southern Lebanon 4 years ago. In response, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said that his militants would not stand idle. Lebanon has also upped the stakes, saying it would retaliate in the event of a new Israeli provocation. And so you have the war signs. Not only do you have these war signs, but Jesus told us in Matthew 24:7 that in the last days, not only are you going to hear these rumors of wars, you're going to see wars. And we know that this is one of the wars that is coming for sure. These tensions are mounting, and we see troops that are being moved from Syria into Lebanon. And if you go into my website and start scrolling down to all the different posts that I have that says the Psalm 83 war, you will see all the documents that I put out there showing that these arms are moving closer and closer to the Israel. And they've been now, again, just like I said that they would do, they're starting to send in more rockets and mortars into Israel, because there's no way that they're going to stop. The agenda is to retrieve and to recapture Jerusalem again. So this is what is in store for the near future. So I ask you, check out my website, look at all the documentations, and you'll know that what Christ told us is about to take place. Thank you.